judge said, has anyone posted anything on Facebook about you? And the juror answered, I was not aware of it until Miss Becky told me today. Do you recall that?
I do remember her saying that.
And do you recall the judge saying, what did she tell me? And the juror said, she asked me if I had an ex-husband, and I said, yeah. Did you ask her that?
I remember her saying this, Your Honor, but I did not ask her any of these questions.
And she further says, she asked me if I had talked to him about the case or being on jury duty, and I said no. I had questioned her about why she was asking me that. I haven't seen my husband since 2014. Do you recall her testifying to that?
I do remember that, yes.
And with that, having jarred your memory, do you recall asking her about her husband and his post?
Your Honor, I don't remember saying anything about that.
Well, what was the post that you read in the Walterboro word of mouth? What was the nature? You read that, did you not?
I did.
What did it say?
My memory is a little fuzzy with that, but it was about an ex-husband who found out that his ex-wife was on a jury, and he didn't think that she would be a good juror. And it just sounded very similar to what I had heard the judge and the attorneys speaking about.
So you then went to that juror and questioned her about that, did you not?
I did not, Your Honor.
Well, she says in this testimony that she didn't know about the Facebook until Miss Becky told me. Was that incorrect?
I'm not saying.
Some kind of conversation went between the two of her for her to know about that post, correct?
That's true. And I'm thinking that it could have been someone, it wasn't me. I just know that it's not me that she talked to about that.
Well, when the judge, the judge was questioning the juror about this, she also said that she had 3 restraining orders.
All right, let's see. Do y'all know where you ended? 'Cause I jumped off. I was trying to figure this out. Let me see what we got.
Correct.
Correct.
Tell me
Okay.
if this seems
You
right.
would concede then that you have lied in the book.
It's only because I wasn't there at the time. I can't interview my dead grandfather. I can't interview Mr. Buster. There's just things that we can't interview them on. We can go by what was written in a newspaper and get facts from that.
And the inference that one of the Murdaughs is a pedophile. You could have printed that, and they're not here to contradict it. You could have printed anything you wanted and made it up to sell books. That's what this whole scheme was about, selling books. As you told Rhonda McElveen, if him being found guilty would sell more books.
Your Honor,
Isn't that true?
I'd object to the argument of the nature of the question, the compound question, and assuming facts on that.
Compound question. If what you're asking
Creighton
is what,
sounds crazy
she
at
told,
1.25.
Ms. McElveen, go on and ask that, but don't proceed it with
Yes, Your Honor.
testimony.
Beg the court's indulgence for just a moment.
So what is that? So do we need to go back a little further? All right. We're going to go back a little further. Let's see. This is about 20. Let's try here.
Did she ever discussed with you if some issues the jurors had emotionally or some issues with dissension in the jury room?
Y'all got to tell me in chat
She
if this
only
is
told
right,
me
'cause
that
I
there was
wasn't
some
watching
loud
Jay's
jurors,
stream
and
after I
it
logged
made some of
off.
the other jurors a little upset. But other than that,
What did you tell her to do?
I told her if it got out of hand to write a note to the judge, and that she could sign the note and get Mr. Bill to give it to the judge, and the judge would handle that for her.
Now, you did publish a book after this trial, is that correct?
We did.
And you went to New York and took some of the jurors to the Today Show.
The Today Show did invite us, yes.
Now, one of those jurors that
Thanks,
went up there
Tracy.
with you, the day of the verdict, wore, for the first time I can remember, wore a suit to court. Do you remember that?
Your Honor, again, I would object to discussion of the jurors wearing a suit or a post-trial trip to the Today Show. I don't believe there's any connection to the inquiry that's focused for Your Honor, and that is whether or not there was any extraneous influence during the course of the trial.
I'm going to connect with you.
All right, overruled. May continue, Mr. Hopper.
Did you text, email, or communicate on the morning before final arguments were completed that to people that this was on a Thursday, that they probably, if they're going to see the trial, should come on that Thursday because it'd be over by the next day? The jury would not be out very long. Did you ever communicate that? Email, text, or verbally?
I do remember saying that, yes.
And why did you think the jury would not be out very long? Had you communicated with jurors?
I had not communicated with jurors about anything related to this trial at all. I've been a court reporter for at least 14 years. I was clerk of court for 3. And you just get to where you kind of see things happen as they progress. And it's a guess, it's a gut feeling. And that's all that I meant by that.
Well, why are you telling this young man who wanted passes for the next day in an email, it won't be happening tomorrow? That was or did you say, you didn't say, I don't think, you just said, you better come today if you're coming. Remember doing that?
I don't remember that. But, if he wanted to come, I knew that the trial would be ending shortly as far as testimony. So if he wanted to come, he needed to come.
Why wouldn't the jury have been out a week on a 6-week trial?
They could have.
But
They could have.
you apparently were telling the press and others that there'd be a quick verdict. Were you not?
That was just a gut feeling that I had. And that was my opinion.
You were right. Jury was out 3 hours on a 6-week trial. Correct?
That's true.
How much money did you make off that book?
$1 million.
There was not a whole lot of money made off of the book after paying different things and paying for some expenses that went along with that. But I want to say roughly around 100,000.
Okay. That's not a lot of money.
Yeah, the book sales
Especially when you publish your
kind
own
of
book,
tanked after all this
That
shit
was
came out.
100,000 you made.
with my co-author.
In what period of time? 6 months?
I would say 6 months, yes.
When was the book published?
August 1st.
Okay. Trial was over. That's 6 months after the trial's over, you published a book. Correct?
Correct.
And then I believe you recently stopped selling the book because of the plagiarism you've admitted to, correct?
Correct.
And so there's no more money?
Correct.
Now, you also indicate in the book that the Murdaughs had a reputation of criminality, I think is kind of what you put. Did you not?
Well, Mr. Hart Cooley and my grandfather and Old Man Buster were very close.
Well, were they criminals?
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. But you believed and you published that the Murdaugh family had run that part of the state and they've been participated in criminal conduct, correct?
Your Honor, again, I would object to general testimony about the alleged criminality of this family. I'm not sure how that has any bearing on the focused inquiry before the court.
He's asking about what she said in the book. I'm going to allow it.
Yes. Did you say that in the book, that they were criminals?
In the book, that
No, I thought Toll's original ruling that they were not going to be allowed to get into this type of testimony regarding the book and the plagiarism and, sales of the book and lying in the book in order to impeach her. Am I crazy on that, or wasn't that the ruling?
more of the literary ease that we take, I think, to make a story a little more interesting for the reader.
By calling people criminals. I guess what I'm saying is this. Were they criminals?
Your Honor, again, I object to the question.
Overruled.
Were they criminals?
I wouldn't know that.
Okay, so you either made it up or you're lying about it? About the reputation of people that can't defend themselves? They're dead? You're going to call them criminals? You did that in the book so you could sell a book?
No, I didn't do that to sell a book.
What'd
This
you
is
do it
not
for?
relevant.
Made
to
it
the
more
question
readable,
at
you
hand.
said? Which
the
sells
Where's
books?
literary
Creighton?
ease.
Stand up,
What?
Creighton.
Literary,
Object.
Literary what?
the literary ease that you can take when writing a book.
Literary ease you can take with writing a book. You can make stuff up. You can lie. You can lie about people.
Not with that. I think the public perception was one that it was very interesting during this time.
So you're
And-
feeding the monster out there that wants to believe bad things about the Murdaughs, and you'll make stuff up to do it. Let me give you another example. I read your book, and I found this somewhat humorous. My co-counsel did not. In describing myself and Mr. Griffin, in the book you say that I neutered him. We've both been very interested in what you meant by that. What do you mean by neutering Jim Griffin?
Mr. Hartvillian, it was a book.
Did you make it up? I know it was a book. The
Right.
Bible's a book. I mean, just because it's a book doesn't mean you can lie in it.
It's just a word that was used.
After that, Shane.
Don't argue with the witness, but the witness, Ms. Hill,
Charlotte, I swear.
you're instructed to answer
Probably
this
not as
question.
much as Jay, at least
You
on
better
live
proceed,
streams.
Mr.
In real life.
So let me get this straight. The
Probably
book, and I'll see if I can
swear.
cut to the chase on this. I can
Like
read
a
you
lot
chapter
more.
after chapter, verse after verse, which
And
is
Allison,
not true.
potty mouth.
Okay, not true based on my experience of being in a courtroom, and not true based on knowing some of the people you described. You say that is
Mr. Humphrey,
I object. The council's just testifying right now as to his observations about the book.
Finally,
Mr. Humphrey, please.
finally.
you have conceded there are things in the book that you don't know to be true. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. You would concede then that you have lied in the book.
It's only because I wasn't there at the time. I can't interview my dead grandfather. I can't interview Mr. Buster. There's just things that we can't interview them on. We can go by what was written in a newspaper and get facts from that.
And take the inference that one of the Murdaughs was a pedophile. You could have printed that, and they're not here to contradict it. You could have printed anything you wanted and made it up to sell books. That's what this whole scheme was about, selling books. As you told Rhonda McElveen, if him being found guilty would sell more books.
Your Honor,
Isn't that true?
I object to the argumentative nature of the question, the compound question, and assuming facts on that.
Compound question. If what you're asking is what she told Ms. McElveen, go on and ask that, but don't proceed it with
Yes, Your Honor.
testimony.
Beg the court's indulgence for just a moment.
Now, Jim, you got anything else you want me to ask her? Here, let me put my glasses on. Okay, what about this thing right here? Okay. Wait, which thing? Right, where? What, should I use this box? Do I bring this box up there? Okay.
Write your book about Juror that whose ex-husband had posted something we now know probably wasn't her ex-husband. Did she have any other ex-husbands that you found out about?
I have no idea.
Well, he wrote, we learned later the ex-spouses hadn't seen each other in 14 years and she had 3 restraining
Bloody
orders
shins.
against him. Did she have 3 restraining orders against him?
I don't know. That's what she said.
Okay. Did you tell jurors at the end of the trial after President's Day break would have been a Monday, correct?
Correct.
But before Mr. Murdaugh testified, did you tell the jury not to be fooled by the evidence presented by Mr. Murdaugh's lawyers?
Mr. Hartvillian, I never talked to the jurors about any of the evidence.
So the
in
answer
this
would be
case.
yes or no, then he can explain. Did you say that?
No.
Okay.
It's rough. It's rough.
Did you ever instruct the jury to watch him closely immediately before he testified, looking at his actions, looking at his movements? Did you ever tell the jury to do that?
No.
Did you ever tell the jury to pay attention to Mr. Murdaugh's testimony?
To pay attention, not specifically to his testimony. I did tell the jury to pay attention,
To what?
just generally in the hallway when I was speaking.
Not to him?
No.
Just any witness?
Right.
Okay. Did you
Yeah, Poot's got a little bit of.
Did you ever
green
warn the
tint there.
jurors the defense is about to do their side? This is right before, right at the beginning of the defense
See,
case.
part.
They're going to
Oompa
say
Loompa?
things that will try to confuse you. Don't let
Mhm.
them confuse you or convince you or throw you off. Did you ever tell the jury that?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you ever tell the jury if you get emotional, we want to see your face because that is what they want to see? You ever tell them that?
No, sir.
Did you ever tell the jury that Mr. Murdaugh was about to testify?
I didn't tell the jurors that.
Now, did you tell the jury that if they didn't reach the verdict by 10 o'clock, they were going to have to spend the night?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you ever tell them they were going to have to spend the night?
No,
Did he
sir.
give you some,
Did you ever tell
some
them that they
sleeping
couldn't smoke?
bags, no
No, sir.
smoking, and you're sleeping here?
You got any other books in the works?
No, sir.
I mean, doesn't this make a good book?
Wow.
Thank
Old Poot. Old Poot. Well, Creighton's just like this whole thing. He's got to be furious. I mean, he's like, he didn't sign up for this shit. He's like, yeah, I already tried this case. Got a conviction. Oh, he's got to just be furious with Becky Hill. Furious.
Your Honor, there were a few matters came up on cross, obviously, that I objected to.
You won't waive your right. You may reserve your rights to object to the entire line of testimony, but you may offer cross-examination subject to the assertion of your objection about the testimony.
Thank you, Your Honor. One of the things you were asked about is finding this Facebook post. And you
Always.
brought that to the court's attention after a different issue had already arisen related to a juror. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And are you technically capable of manufacturing a Facebook post? Is that anything that you have any capability to do?
I'm not.
All right.
What
And
about
did
your
you
son, though?
ask your staff member to go see if she could find this post?
I did.
Did you tell her just generally what you recalled reviewing?
Yes.
And did you give her any further instruction other than that?
No.
Were you sitting behind her as she was doing this particular search or anything like that? Or did she eventually report back to you?
She is very, very techy. And then she reported back to me.
All right. So you weren't there when she was searching anything like that?
No.
She was like, I couldn't find that post, but I did find this, and handed you the Facebook post. Is that
Correct.
correct? And then
Correct.
you provided that to Judge Newman and ultimately it was provided to the parties. Is that correct?
Right. Correct.
You were asked about conversations that you had with the forelady. Did those involve logistical issues and things like that? For the jury?
The conversations with the forelady was everything. There was nothing regarding the defendant and this trial.
All right. So they were logistical issues, not anything to do with the substance of the trial. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
You were asked about whether or not you had texted some people, this won't be long. Was that at all in any way based on any conversation you had with the juror as to their internal thinking or anything like that? Or was that just your assessment being an experienced person in the court?
Absolutely not.
It was based on just your assessment?
Just my assessments. Yes.
Did you ever communicate with the jurors on how long they would be, or did any juror ever tell you how long they thought they would be?
I never talked to any jurors about anything like that.
You were asked about your book, and
Becky
I don't want to
Hill.
get into too much detail about that, but you were asked about some of the assertions
You
that you
damn
made in
lie.
the book. And you were asked if these were lies. Were they lies, or were they ultimately things that were based on inferences from newspapers and community stories?
You are leading fine. This is your witness, Mr. Waters, so please ask a direct question.
Thank you. Some of the statements that you were asked about in your book, were they lies, or were they based on your inferences from just general community knowledge and things that you had researched and knew?
All right.
Thank you.
He's
sir.
right about that, Mr. Waters. Just ask a direct question.
Did you lie in your book?
No, I did not.
You were asked about,
I just stole it.
when you told the jury,
Plagiarize, I know.
pay attention. When you asked that
There were
question,
lies
did you
because the
mention
other
anything
guy
about,
lied.
we got coffee for you or things like that?
I knew that Mr. Bill would take care of that. And the jurors knew too. Coffee, we had done some Dunkin' Donut runs. We had provided coffee, different other things to help stay awake in the cold courtroom that we found ourselves in. And so I knew anything that they needed, Mr. Bill would see that they got, because that's what he did.
At any time, did you have any conversation with any juror in which you tried to influence their decision?
I did not have a conversation with any juror about anything related to this case.
All right. Ms. Hill? I want you to turn your attention to a hearing that Judge Newman had about the alternate who was.
I love this. The judge goes at her.
Sometimes called the egg juror. Do you recall that hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
In the hearing, Judge Newman expressed his unhappiness with you for questioning that juror before he questioned her. Do you recall that?
I do remember seeing that.
Well, then let's go back and talk about that juror.
What's up, Teresa?
You
Criminality's in the house.
Examination in this courtroom, you said that she talked about a lot of things to you, but you didn't ask her any questions. But that's not completely accurate, is it?
Uh-oh.
Yes, ma'am, that is true.
Well, you asked her direct questions, and that came out in the hearing that Judge Newman had. You asked her questions before she was even examined by the judge, did you not?
Your Honor, I did not ask her any questions.
Judge is looking for receipts right now, y'all. That's what she's doing up there. She's trying to find some receipts.
The juror was examined by the judge in a hearing. Do you recall that hearing? It's the second hearing on this matter.
I do recall that hearing, yes.
And the court asked you about, the court asked this juror about postings on Facebook, did he not?
Correct.
And the juror said she gave Miss Becky my full access to my Facebook. I put positive posts on it. I've done that for the past 3 years. Do you recall her testifying in that regard?
I do remember reading that.
And the judge said, has anyone posted anything on Facebook about you? And the juror answered, I was not aware of it until Miss Becky told me today. Do you recall that?
I do remember her saying that.
And do you recall the judge saying, what did she tell me? And the juror said, she asked me if I had an ex-husband, and I said, yeah. Did you ask her that?
I remember her saying this, Your Honor, but I did not ask her any of these questions.
And she further says, she asked me if I had talked to him about the case or being on jury duty, and I said no. I had questioned her about why she was asking me that. I haven't seen my husband since 2014. Do you recall her testifying to that?
I do remember that, yes.
And with that, having jarred your memory, do you recall asking her about her husband and his post?
Your Honor, I don't remember saying anything about that.
Well, what was the post that you read in the Walterboro word of mouth? What was the nature? You read that, did you not?
I did.
What did it say?
My memory is a little fuzzy with that, but it was about an ex-husband who found out that his ex-wife was on a jury, and he didn't think that she would be a good juror. And it just sounded very similar to what I had heard the judge and the attorneys speaking
So
about.
you then went to that juror and questioned her about that, did you not?
I did not, Your Honor.
Well, she says in this testimony that she didn't know about the Facebook until Miss Becky told me. Was that incorrect?
I'm not saying,
Some kind of conversation went between the two of her for her to know about that post, correct?
that's true. And I'm thinking that it could have been someone, it wasn't me. I just know that it's not me that she talked to about that.
Well, when the judge, the judge was questioning the juror about this, she also said that she had 3 restraining orders against him. And she also said, I was very upset after she told me that. Like I said, I have 3 restraining orders against him, and I wouldn't have anything to do with him if I didn't have a child with him. But I haven't seen him since 2014. Y'all didn't discuss that, the restraining orders?
On the way from the jury room to the back chambers where the judge was, she was very scared. She was talking about the 3 restraining orders that she had out on her husband at the time that they were divorcing. And she was scared that he would be trying to get back in contact with her again.
Well, how did you know that? Did she tell you that?
She was talking about that on the way to the jury room, to the chambers with the judge.
And in the court, in this hearing now that I'm looking at, that the court is conducting, she said, they're asking about this Facebook post. And she said, Miss Becky said she went to look for the post again and that it had been deleted. I don't know who she talked to or anything else, but she said apparently, do you recall her saying that?
I do remember her saying that.
And the court then said, what did she tell you about that? And the juror said, it was after you let us go on the last break. I was very upset. This is what you're talking about. And she came down and talked to me and said that apparently, I don't know who talked to him, but he said he was drunk and he removed the post. Do you recall that?
And, well, she didn't tell me that, and I didn't talk with her about that.
When you saw that post, the so-called apology post, did you not?
Right, I did.
And you assumed that was a post from her husband, did you not?
Right.
And then you talked to the juror about that, did you not?
I did not talk with the juror about that.
Well, who did you talk to about it? Did you bring it to the judge's attention?
No, we didn't get a chance to talk to the judge about that.
The court asked this juror, has the clerk discussed anything about the case with anyone on the jury? The juror said, not that I'm aware of. The judge said, okay, she was just discussing with juror. She pulled me aside when we went downstairs after the last break. I want to say it was after lunch, and we came back, and that's when she first told me about this, what we now know was not a post from her husband.
Right.
But you assumed it was a post at the time, and y'all had a conversation about it, correct? Don't just nod. Answer the question.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I believe that it was one of my staff that she talked to, but it was not me that she talked to.
But the juror says, and I want to say it was after lunch we came back, and that's when she first told me about it. She's talking about you.
Correct.
Then we went back into the court, and I never even got to sit on the jury. The judge says,
I don't think so, Shannon.
the judge then stops the questioning, and she exits the room.
It'll be a trial judge.
Mr. Griffin, Your Honor, I think that satisfies it. She hadn't talked to anybody, hadn't expressed an opinion, hadn't made up an opinion. She's got an ex-husband, and she has 3 restraining orders against him. The court said, Mr. Waters, just obviously we're all invested in this. My main concern, I certainly would love to, but not love to, but want to hear, what one of these individuals said. But, she answered the questions as she did, talking about the juror. They then have a colloquy about this juror and whether this was really her husband that put this posting that you talked to her about and apparently talked with the court about at some point. Am I right?
That's right.
Yes. Judge Tolles is a woman.
And then at the end, the judge said that he was not too happy with your having talked to the juror before you talked to him. Do you recall the judge saying that?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And did you pop right up there and say what you're saying now, that you never talked to her?
We never talked about it after that. I wasn't in the room when he said that.
Judge Tolles was the former Chief Justice of the South Carolina Supreme Court, just so y'all know.
The judge brought up another thing right after sentencing that I want to explore with you briefly. All right. One of the big responsibilities of the clerk of court is to take control of the exhibits that are presented in court. Isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And there were sealed exhibits presented in this case that were photographs of the 2 decedents at Moselle when the law enforcement authorities first investigated the murders. You recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
And those photographs were sealed by the judge, were they not?
Correct.
And when the testimony about them was completed, they were under your control as the clerk of court, were they not?
That's correct.
How was it that those photographs came into public view?
Are you talking about after the?
I'm talking about the fact he alluded to it on sentencing and said that he was frustrated about it and was going to try to look into it. Those photographs that were sealed court exhibits under your control found their way into the public media, did they not?
I believe they did. And I think what happened, it was someone from the gallery took a picture from a screen that had some of the pictures on it, if I'm remembering correctly.
Did you ever allow anyone from the press to view these sealed exhibits?
No, ma'am.
Did you allow Netflix to ever examine the exhibits for trial?
No, ma'am.
How did you handle exhibits? Because you did have the press have great access to the exhibits, and you say several times in your book that you had to stay after to be sure that you interacted with the press about these exhibits. That's true, is it not?
That is true. We had Mr. J. Bender, and then we had the pool photographers and someone from maybe the state, I believe, or the Posting Courier, along with the court reporters, someone from court administration, and then someone from the clerk's office every night that would go over the exhibits to make sure everything was correct and within our domain.
Were any press people ever allowed to view the exhibits, even the sealed exhibits that you had on file?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
What was the methodology for allowing them to examine the exhibits? How did you handle that?
I wasn't there a whole lot when we did this every night, but it's my understanding that the people that were involved with the exhibits, and especially the court reporters, and there was a certain time frame that they were allowed to take their pictures, and everything was all of the pictures were looked at by the court reporters that were there, and the lady from court administration, along with someone from my office and Mr. J. Bender, to make sure that everything was done correctly.
What I'm asking is how you handled having them, the press, view these exhibits.
If I remember correctly, the press, we had certain designated photographers and then someone, I think, from the state of the Posting Courier, and they were responsible for putting it out on a stream for the rest of the media to access.
Would they do that by photographing the exhibits as they were in your possession after court was over that day?
That is correct.
All right. And how did you handle the sealed exhibits in terms of their availability when these press people are there photographing exhibits?
They stayed sealed.
And so you think that you're aware of the fact that some of these on the scene photographs of the two decedents found their way into the public press. You're aware of that, are you not?
Yes, I am. Yes.
And you contend that they photographed them in the courtroom?
That is what I heard.
She's thinking, man, she's full
All
of
right.
shit.
Trying to drive you to the stove, Miss Daisy.
Finally, you had indicated about your book that some things that you put in there were, you called it literary license, not literally true, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever, by any kind of email communication or in any way, shape, or form, indicate or state that you wanted a guilty verdict because it would increase the sales of the book? Did you ever say that in an email or verbally or in any other way?
Careful.
No, ma'am, I did not. It didn't matter to me if it was guilty, not guilty, or a mistrial.
Well, in your book, you suggest that the guilty verdict was what you wanted, and you were fearful that that a guilty verdict would not be rendered. You say that a lot about your feeling about wanting a guilty verdict, do you not?
I do agree that that is said in the book. And part of that is because I think it was a guilty verdict.
Well, this is that you were describing a time way before the verdict was rendered when you wrote about those things in the book. Isn't that correct?
It is, yes.
And you even have something where you said your eyes met with jurors and others at Moselle, and y'all had an understanding, unspoken, that he was guilty. You said that in the book, did you not?
I did say that in the book, and I would consider that part of the literary, the word that we just said. But there was nothing spoken with the juror at all at Moselle or
She
anywhere
called it
else, at the
poetic
courthouse or
license.
anywhere. I think that was that.
I agree. She's crushing it. Oh, I muted the court, but not myself. That's great. Oh boy.
You wrote in the book, speaking of the time before the jury verdict was rendered,
Oops.
I was conflicted about knowing the Murdaugh family and about having so many people watching and listening to me as I read the verdict. I was mostly concerned about Alex being found innocent when I knew in my heart he was guilty. I had despair that the goodwill of the Murdaughs had built up in the community would influence the jury. You wrote that, did you not?
Yes, ma'am.
So you had those feelings well before the verdict was announced in this case. You had some definite opinions and feelings about what the verdict should be, did you not?
I did have a certain way that I felt. But I
That
would
wasn't
never.
that's not any poetic license, what was said there. That's how you felt, correct?
Correct.
Those are my questions. Anything further from the state, Mr. Waters?
Nice job. Judge Toll coming through. Hard questions. So she was former Supreme Court Justice and then was an Associate Justice on the Supreme Court of South Carolina.
Very briefly, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
You were asked a number of questions about the interactions during the in-camera proceedings with the juror who was excluded. Were you in the room during the entirety of those interactions, or just were brought in here or there as those occurred?
No, I was only brought in for my asking of my questions
Yeah.
from Judge Newman.
And you were asked a little bit
Awesome.
about sealed exhibits and about Judge Newman's comments at sentencing at the end of trial. And just to clarify, those were not pictures of any sealed exhibits. It was a picture that someone had taken in the gallery that had actually been disclosed. And that's what Judge Newman was talking about, to your understanding?
That was my understanding. Yes.
And then after the trial, there was even a post-trial hearing or some discussion about the fact that some body cam videos had not been sealed, and Judge Newman fixed that problem after the trial. Is that correct?
Correct.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Just a couple of questions.
Mr. Harpootlian?
Let me understand this correctly. You would agree that you did release all of the exhibits in this case, sealed and unsealed, to the Texas film crew. Is that correct?
No, sir.
Hmm?
No, sir. I did not release the sealed exhibits.
What about to Netflix? Didn't you indicate to the judge they'd been mistakenly released and you're getting them back?
As an error when we realized everything, yes, those two did go, and Netflix had not even, they said they had not even looked at them.
Did you get them back?
We did get them back, yes.
And what about the Japanese film crew? Did they get exhibits, the sealed exhibits?
They did not get any sealed exhibits.
What about NBC Universal?
No sealed exhibits.
But you do concede that Netflix did get sealed exhibits.
They did it as an error. It wasn't
Who
listed. Well, I would say the court reporter didn't mark it on the listing.
Well, why were you so accommodating to these national documentary folks? I mean, is this good for the book? I mean, the more documentaries out there about the Murdaugh thing, the better your book sales are. I mean, there was money in this for you, right? Again, it's about the money, right?
What's your question now?
Isn't it financially beneficial to you at the time to get more of these photographs out, more publicity, more Netflix, more HBOs, more Japanese? Doesn't that sell books for you? Didn't you see a financial advantage?
Not at all.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Hill, you may step down. Yes, let's hang on for a moment. Mr. Lewis. Well, I wanted to step down. Yes, he's still under subpoena. I haven't heard what's going to be said. Mr. Harpootlian still has some things he wants to raise about other witnesses and so forth. So what I would prefer is that she remain with you, Mr. Lewis, until we see what else is going to happen. You may step down.
Oh, I thought the judge was going to have a Columbo moment.
There's just one more thing I want to ask you, ma'am.
I'm alive, dude. Can't do it.
All right, Mr. Harpootlian.
We've got literally millions of pages of documents in this case. This Miller just uncovered an email she specifically denied saying certain things to the clerk of court of Barnwell County and denied doing certain things. I think you're going to find her testimony extraordinarily instructive and educational. And it shouldn't take, I would be shocked if it took 20 minutes.
Well, in light of the answers she gave to my questions and some of yours in that regard, I'm going to allow it. Now, I want to know what else we're looking at here.
Judge, why were you so accommodating to these national documentary folks? I mean, is this good for the book? I mean, the more documentaries out there about the Murdaugh thing, the better your book sales are. I mean, there was money in this for you, right? Again, it's about the money.
Even more?
Right?
What's your question now?
Isn't it financially beneficial to you at the time to get more of these photographs out, more publicity, more Netflix, more HBOs, more Japanese? Doesn't that sell books for you? Didn't you see a financial advantage?
Not at all.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Should I go back far enough, or should I go back further?
That's right.
Yeah, we're good.
Hang on for a moment.
It's
Mr.
all right.
Lewis.
I don't know why it's turning the volume off if I go off screen. It's weird.
Don't worry about it.
I haven't heard what's going to be
My
said.
computer
Mr. Harpootlian still has some things he wants to raise about other witnesses and so forth. So what I would prefer is that she remain with you, Mr. Lewis, until we see what else is going to happen. You may step in.
It's funny.
All right, Mr. Harpootlian.
Your Honor, we've got literally millions of pages of documents in this case.
Millions.
Uncovered in email.
Millions.
You asked.
Wow.
We don't have it printed out.
Millions.
But what it is an email from Rebecca Hill to Miho Takachuchi, something. Miho, first name, the Buford McDowell body cam should not have gone to you. Please get rid of it. Do not use it. The Judge Newman, specifically ordered the body cam not to use if it got out. Apparently, it's still on the video we were saved. I appreciate your attention. What about what about the other body cam video we could see on many news documentaries? Can you provide it? It seems the camera's on the other police personnel. I mean, here she's having emails between this Japanese production company about body cams telling them to get rid of it. I think that's important. And I can have a copy of this printed out for you when we get it to a printer for you for the record.
That would be fine, but do you want to offer it as an exhibit?
I do.
All right, Mr. Waters?
I have no objection. If I can just ask the date of that.
The date is July 17th, 2023. July.
All right, that's one thing. What else? I will admit it. I will allow it. That is a impeachment of her testimony to me that she did not send any emails or release anything.
Yes, sir.
In fact, she changed that testimony on redirect when she said she did, so-called by accident, releasing things.
That doesn't appear to be by accident. So we'd like that made part of the record. Secondly, I have sitting outside the courtroom, the clerk of court for Barnwell County, Rhonda McElvey. She specifically denied saying certain things to the clerk of court of Barnwell County and denied doing certain things. I think you're going to find her testimony extraordinarily instructive and educational. And it shouldn't take, I would be shocked if it took 20 minutes.
Well, in light of the answers she gave to my questions and some of yours in that regard, I'm going to allow it. Now, I want to know what else we're looking at here.
Y'all, am I muted or can you hear me? I shouldn't be. It's not showing me muted. Nice, Diz.
Your Honor, I want to hand up to you an affidavit from a witness we would propose to provide in addition to clerk of court.
The judge looks pissed.
Alternate juror, not the egg. This was the alternate juror who was dismissed when she was not needed for deliberations. And she is here also ready to testify. Testimony would take about the same time as one of those jurors this morning.
Sir,
I would expect her testimony would take about as much time as one of those jurors this morning.
this is your offer in refutation of the testimony Ms. Hill has given today.
Saying any
She
of it.
denies saying anything. That's correct.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, is this juror, alternate juror going to testify?
She's here. Your Honor. She's sitting.
Well, you just say she's here, she's available.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Waters?
Your Honor, a couple things on this particular alternate juror. We've just been handed this particular affidavit. Your Honor, I believe that Your Honor had correctly ruled that the focus again was on those jurors, and the inquiry has been made to those particular jurors. I don't know why we would go into detail with an alternate juror that ultimately did not sit in any deliberations and did not testify as to any effect on the verdict, which is the ultimate inquiry before Your Honor. And so we would object to this particular testimony as far as it relates to the alternate juror.
Here's the one that gives me some heartburn, and you can help me with this, please. I stand by the rulings I have made that only jurors can be questioned about the effect on their verdict. And
Impeachment, though.
that is why I did not allow the testimony of the egg juror in that regard. He is now offering this testimony, and it's testimony of certain things that were said to the jurors as a whole, rather than just to this particular juror. And I would, as I say, I would ordinarily not allow this, but Ms. Hill testified several times during the course of her just concluded appearance that she never told any jurors anything along the lines of what has been asked here, particularly the comments about they're going to say things that will try to confuse you or throw you off, things of that nature. She was asked about that, and she denied she ever said anything like that. So this is an attempt to impeach as I see it, and that's what's giving me a little heartburn about just turning him down flat.
Well, a couple things to add to that, Your Honor. First of all, I think that we have some very specific statements and a specific individual that's mentioned here. And so if we're looking at Rule 613B, which is essentially where they're operating, I don't know that there was an appropriate foundation laid as to the specific time and to whom these specific statements were made. I think that it needed to be cleaner with regards to that as to, you know, mentioning this particular person and as much as you can, the time and place and the very specific statements that were made. I think Mr. Harpootlian, again, we had these general allegations and kind of went through those, but I don't know that now that we've just been handed this affidavit, that they were set forth as appropriate clarity that's required by 613B. So I think there's a failure there.
Mr. Waters, look for a minute at paragraph 3,
Mm-hmm.
4,
Mm-hmm.
5, 6.
Oh.
7.
Impeachment.
Those paragraphs all address things that have been asked her, and they are pretty specific as to time and place. And the content of this testimony is an attempt to impeach her, Ms. Hill's testimony. That's why as I guess colloquially I say, I'm having a little heartburn about excluding this, is because she was asked directly about these matters. And this testimony would be in conflict with that. It would be permitted to impeach someone.
Right. And Your Honor, I certainly understand the point. I guess I would have just 2 points to that. Number one is that, as we've already talked about, this evidentiary hearing is within your discretion in the manner, particularly when you're talking about jurors and the manner to be conducting that. Now we're talking about putting the juror on the stand and having a attorney examination. I think under the case law, that's within your discretion as to how that inquiry should go, as opposed to were we purely in a trial setting and applying the evidentiary rules. But if we're applying the evidentiary rules, again, strictly applied, I think that I don't know that they have laid the foundation with enough clarity to offer extrinsic evidence under 613B. And that would be our argument there, that we just had generally discussion of some of these concepts, but not the place, time, and person to whom it was made with the specificity that 613B requires. So that would be our evidentiary objection in the event that Your Honor is addressing those. So that would be our position. I do also, before we get started, I do want to go back and address the sealed exhibits issue whenever it's appropriate.
Sure.
If now I have to.
All right. Mr. Harpootlian, slow for a minute. I'm turning to Mr. Waters to try to get some clarity about why he objects to this testimony. One is the 613 issue that he's explored, and I understand that. He now wants to say something about the sealed exhibits. So I want to hear from him on that, and then you can reply to both of them.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Distracted by this
Sure, I understand.
And, finally, going back to the juror issue, we would also raise 403 as well, just because of the nature of the inquiry that we're here to assess. Going back to the sealed exhibits, I just want to clarify for Your Honor, Mr. Griffin and Mr. Harpootlian were at this hearing. After the trial, there was a release of, and these were publicly filed exhibits, of a number of exhibits. What also got released at the time were 2 body cam exhibits, which had images of the victims at the scene. Those had inadvertently not been marked as sealed exhibits. And ultimately, then we had a hearing in front of Judge Newman, and essentially those were clawed back. So I just want to be clear that when we're having testimony about that particular thing, as it relates to what Ms. Hill was saying, those were the sealed exhibits that were released. And again, at the time, they had not been marked sealed, and that was sort of retroactively fixed. And then the other issue, of course, is, Your Honor, is again that the issue that Judge Newman was talking about after sentencing was a gallery photo. It was not what apparently would be maybe a press photo of the exact exhibits. And what we did at trial, and Mr. Harpootlian can speak to this, and Mr. Bender could as well, is at the end of each day, first of all, the sealed exhibits would have a cover sheet or a folder that they would be in, and then they would verify with the parties that these are the okay exhibits, these are the sealed exhibits, and then at that point, after court was concluded, the media would then be allowed to review and or photograph or get copies of the unsealed exhibits. So that's just how the procedure was working.
That's very helpful to clarify this, because I now see this in perspective, that there were that the materials that were photographs at the scene or depictions at the scene of the 2 victims. What you're telling me is that those were inadvertently released after the trial by, I guess, it would have to be by the third court. She's the one that had them, and then they weren't properly marked, and they were then clawed back.
Yeah, they were the 2 body cam videos, and so in those videos, they weren't physical images, but they were the body cam videos, and then in those videos, you could see the victims at the scene.
Right.
And those 2 exhibits, to my recollection, were the only 2 that should have been sealed, but they, in fairness, were not marked sealed, and that's how they got released. The second we realized it was a problem, we took care of it and clawed those back.
That clarifies that issue for me. So, I frankly, that puts my mind at ease about what happened there. Now, Mr. Harpootlian, I'll come to you momentarily. Anything else?
No.
Okay, now, Mr. Harpootlian.
A couple of things I'd point out. The first is this, in terms of the statement by this alternate juror. She was interviewed by SLED on video, said exactly the same thing as she's saying in this affidavit weeks, if not months ago. So they know exactly what she said. I can assume they reviewed it. By the way, I have basically read from this affidavit as they cross-examined the clerk, and she denied each one of these statements.
Big Red?
The second piece of that is this.
I know it's on that basis that I'm even pursuing the idea of you're offering something by way of impeachment. So I understand that.
And secondly, as to the sealed exhibits, I think we're going to hear testimony from Ms. McElveen that may elaborate on your concerns based on our interview with her this morning.
All right. Well, here's what we're going to do. It's about 3 minutes of 3, which is when I generally take my afternoon break. I'm going to adjourn the court or recess the court, and we come back at 3:15, and I will allow you to offer Ms. McElveen and the alternate. I want to make it clear that they will be offered on what we've talked about, matters about which Ms. Hill testified that you think are impeached by Ms. McElveen's testimony, and that you think are impeached by the alternate juror's testimony. So and the alternate juror's testimony, as I look at it, is the part that about which impeachment would lie would begin at paragraph 3. So do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am. Can I make you one other offer?
Yes, sir.
Today and today only. Egg Lady is across the street.
Well,
No. If you want to put her on the stand.
no. I've made my position quite clear about that. I think we've got in the record what is needed in terms of what she says, Ms. Hill says, and what Ms. Hill says she says.
I agree. We did not intend on calling her. I just didn't want you to miss the opportunity if you wanted the opportunity to examine.
All right, thank you, Mr. Harpootlian. All right, court will be in recess until 3:15.
All right. So pretty interesting stuff. If you're in the, I hope, against all things sacred, that Murdaugh isn't getting another trial for this particular case, I got bad news for you. The judge, when she was digging in, really, kind of showed her hand a little bit in terms of her questioning. And then even more than that was her statement after the fact when Harpootlian was wanting to put in what is considered to be impeachment evidence. Okay. And for those of y'all that don't know what impeachment evidence is, it's evidence that they're going to use to show that Becky lied at this hearing when the judge was asking her questions. So Harpootlian plans on putting these affidavits in order to directly refute and impeach Becky Hill's testimony here at this particular evidentiary hearing. I don't know, the bottom line is jury trials are a sacred thing in this country. We can't allow for any kind of impropriety to take place with the jurors. It's like I go to incredibly great lengths to avoid jurors during a trial. Like if I see them eating in a lunchroom, like I leave the lunchroom. If I see one walking into the bathroom while I'm walking in myself, I turn around. If I see one in an elevator, I just avoid them because of this exact thing. And when you have the clerk of the court, oh, is she back already? All right. And I'm going to forewarn y'all, like Jay had to leave. I'm going on Law and Crime, which has been scheduled. So I'm going to probably have to bounce it's 2:18 Central Standard Time. I'm going to probably have to bounce to get changed into a shirt, throw a tie on, probably by like 2:50 my time. So 3:50 Eastern Standard. But let's see if we can get this puppy back up and running. That was a nice behind time. So let's see if we can get to where it's back up and running. All right. There we go. All right, y'all. Judge Toll. Love her. Man, she makes Allison's voice sound like, like a Disney princess. She's got a very deep voice, very baritone. Of course, no pants, Lily. That'd be ridiculous. Me wear pants on TV.
All right, Mr. Harpootlian, I believe it's you to present your witness. Please speak.
Rhonda McElveen?
She didn't make enough on that book, though, did she now? Oof. The sequel.
You swear affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the
Your
truth, the whole
story.
truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am, that's what I'm here for.
Thank you. Please have a seat on the witness stand. State your full name for the record, and please spell your first and last name.
Rhonda McElveen, RHONDA, MCELVEEN. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna stay here.
Better raise that feet, man.
Yes, sir.
Say your name, please, so I can make sure I can hear you.
Rhonda McElveen.
Your Honor, can you hear? Okay.
I can hear you great, Dick. I can hear you, but I would doubt that anybody posted
Is that better?
lawyers would hear
Is
you.
that better? No?
Is that the known Mr. Bailey?
Next door.
I don't want to get into the thing.
Well, I can speak up. I'll just speak up. How about that? I have a big voice. How you?
It's just not on at all, though.
No, it's on.
You don't?
This one.
Okay. All right, Mr. Harpootlian, you may proceed.
I'll speak a little louder if that. Say your name again for the record, please.
Rhonda McElveen,
And Ms. McElveen, what do you do for a living?
clerk of court and ROD for Barnwell County.
Clerk of court in what?
Register of Deeds, I have 2 titles.
2 titles. And is that an appointed or an elected position?
Elected.
So you're elected by the people of Barnwell County.
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been the clerk of court of Barnwell County?
This is my 16th year,
16 years. And
and I'm running again, sir.
you're up this year, 24 is,
Yes, sir.
all right. Don't think I'm allowed to plug that, but you have been the clerk for 16 years. You're up again this year. Now, do you know the clerk of, well, back up just a second. Do you hold any position with, is there a state organization of clerks of court?
Yes, sir. I'm actually the president of the South Carolina Clerks of Court and Register of Deeds.
Okay. And that means that of the 46, there are 46 of y'all? Is that
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
And you were elected to be the chairman of that group,
President of that group.
president of that group.
Yes, sir.
Now, are there certain rules and constraints that clerks should operate under in terms of dealing with juries?
Yes, sir.
And is there training for that, or is there a book for that, or how do you learn that?
You have the Clerk of Court manual for one that's on the judicial website. You also have the law books that have it in there. There's actually two separate forms, SCCA 237 and 238 maybe, that has regulations on it. And then we also have in the handbook that, or not handbook, but in the program within the CMS system, they actually have rules and stuff that you can go by as well.
Now, as a clerk of court, are part of your duties to deal with juries?
Yes, sir.
I mean, we understand there's a jury venire that's brought in at the beginning of a term, and then individual juries are picked for both civil and criminal cases. Is that correct?
That is correct, unless it's a non-jury trial.
And then there's just a judge, like we're doing here, right?
Yes, sir.
And in the process of picking juries, do you assist as clerk of court? When I say assist, who actually picks the jurors out of a hat, or however, whatever the process is?
Well, actually, the first process is you draw a jury by computers through the CMS system, and then summons are sent out. And then once we come to court, we usually do a roll call. We see what everybody's doing, what the jobs and everything, to help the attorneys to decide which jurors they would like to get. They have so many strikes, et cetera. And then you call the names and they have the strikes, and then that's your jury pool.
And then the judge will seat a jury in a jury box, like, although I've never quite seen a jury box that looks like that, but a jury box in a courtroom, right?
That is correct.
Your jury box in Barnwell County is little, like 2 rows of 7 or 8 people.
Well, I actually have a jury box on both sides of the courtroom, because I have the grand jury on one side when they convene, and then I have the petit juries on the other side when they convene.
Okay. And the jury, they're sworn by the judge, and then they're put in the jury box, and they begin to hear arguments and testimony and jury charges by the judge. Is that correct?
Well, actually, sir, where we do it, the clerk of court usually swears them in with the judge presiding over the whole deal.
Once that jury is sworn in, what is your role in terms of dealing with those jurors individually or as a group? Are you allowed to talk to them individually, to pull them out, to converse with them about your opinion about the case?
To pull them out of the trial while we're going on?
Yes, ma'am.
No, sir, we're not. If they're on a break, et cetera, or if they request to see someone, then we manage to, I'll go in the door open. I'll say, which one of you needs to see someone? It might be the judge. And I said, hold on. And then I go get my judge. And so we've got a juror that needs to speak with you.
Do you converse with jurors about the merits of the case, by the merits, whether someone's guilty or innocent, or whether a plaintiff or a defendant should win in a civil case? Do you ever do that?
No, sir, about the most only thing I ever do is go in and count them and tell them I can count up to 14 without even using my toes. And then I might get their lunch order. That's it. And the doors are usually open when I'm doing that.
And you have bailiffs that sit with the jury or sit outside the jury?
They sit outside the jury room, and usually there's one beside them in the courtroom in case somebody needs something. But usually they'll catch my eye, or they'll catch the judge's eye, and we'll get something handled.
Okay, so did you have any contact with the clerk of court of Colleton County prior to her being elected the clerk of court of Colleton County? Did you know her before she was clerk of court?
No, I did not.
Did you come to know her when she was elected clerk of court?
Yes, I did.
And was it a pleasant relationship?
It was.
And how did you come to be, and to cut to the chase, you ended up being in the courtroom during the Murdaugh trial for part of those 6 weeks. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How did you come to be there?
When Becky and I met each other at a conference, clerk of court's conference, where she was discussing that she had that trial coming up, and I knew that she was relatively new, and I said, I'll offer to come help you if you would like. And I think she ended up talking to Judge Newman about it, and they both said, yes, it would be good that I was there.
Okay, because you tried a murder case, two in the past, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you go and help Becky Hill try that murder case?
I did. I couldn't go for the first 3 days because I had court in Barnwell, and I told both of them if I had court going on in Barnwell, I could not be in Colleton County.
Okay. Now, to your knowledge, had Ms. Hill ever been the clerk of court that managed a murder trial prior to this?
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
So this was her first murder trial, as far as you know.
As far as I know of this magnitude, I don't know if they had one before then or not.
Okay. Now, when did y'all, initially, what were you talking about in terms of logistics and how you did it and all those sorts of things?
Yes, sir.
During that before the trial, before we ever picked a jury, did she ever discuss with you that she was going to write a book?
Yes, sir. If you
And
wanted to write a book, yes, sir.
Wanted to write a book. Did she indicate what the book was going to be about?
About the trial?
About the Murdaugh trial?
Yes, sir.
And did she discuss with you, what, if anything, did she discuss with you about how she felt the verdict should turn out to be in the Murdaugh trial? Vis-a-vis, in reference to the book, what would help the book?
A guilty verdict.
And tell the judge and me what exactly she said to you that you remember. This is prior to the trial.
Okay. Well, first of all, she said we might want to write a book because she needed a lake house and I needed to retire. And then further conversations, a guilty verdict would sell more books.
Oof.
And we left it at that. This was before, even in December.
Mm.
And when did she ever say that again to you during the weeks you spent there?
Several times. It could be said it was, amongst friends in her office, or we might be having dinner, that kind of stuff, but that's about it.
That she needed a guilty verdict to sell more books.
That would be the best way to sell books, yes, sir.
The best way to sell books. Now, during this process, did she ever express to you an opinion on whether or not, in fact, was Mr. Murdaugh guilty of the murders of his son and his wife?
Yes, sir.
Tell me what she said, and if you remember when.
I don't exactly remember when. I know it's over half of the trial had already happened, but the evidence was coming forth that it looked like he might be guilty. And she made a comment that guilty verdict would be better for the sale of books.
Now, as a result of a conversation you had sometime during the trial, I don't want you to relay to me what was told you. Did you have a discussion with the clerk, Becky Hill, about her being with jurors on her own?
Oh,
Yes,
boy.
sir, I did. One morning I showed up to Colleton County and I was told that she had taken a juror home the night before. And I was in the courtroom and I saw her, and it was between the pews and where the back row pews are. And I mentioned to Miss Becky, I said, please tell me you didn't take a juror home last night. And she told me, she says, I did, but I didn't talk about the case. I had a bailiff with me, Mr. Bill was with me.
Oh,
I said, Becky, you don't do things like that.
man.
I thought we had stopped everything. It wasn't far enough along to really cause a major problem, or I would have told Judge Newman. But I thought we had to understand that you did not spend time alone with the jurors.
Whew.
Now, I'm going to read you some statements. Well, first of all, did you ever hear her say anything in front of you to a juror about whether or not, on the merits of the case, that is, whether or not he was guilty or innocent, or what you should pay attention to? Did you ever hear her? What, if anything, did you ever hear her say to a juror or in the presence of a juror? Anything?
No, sir.
Okay. But let me ask you if you've ever heard her say these statements, and if so, to who? Don't be fooled by the evidence presented by Mr. Murdaugh's attorneys, which I understand. Do not be fooled by the evidence presented by Mr. Murdaugh's attorneys. You ever heard her say that?
Your Honor, this time I would object. This witness was specifically called as a Rule 16.3B extrinsic evidence. I think we've covered the two grounds that would be permissible for her to testify to.
Sit down,
And, I
Creighton.
believe that should be the
Overruled.
end of her testimony, so we would object any further extrinsic evidence as improper impeachment and also irrelevant. I think that the issues that were raised with the prior witness have been covered, and that was the express reason that this witness was called, and Your Honor allowed the testimony.
Overruled. You may continue.
Did
She
you ever
wants to
hear her
hear
say that?
this, buddy.
Can you repeat the verbiage?
Don't be fooled by the evidence presented by Mr. Murdaugh's attorneys.
Yes, I did.
And who was it said to?
It was said to me,
Okay.
and sometimes it might be a staff member in her office or someone from the media there. But other than that, I didn't hear her say it out there in front of any jurors.
Did she ever say to you or to other people around you, I'm not talking about jurors, watch him closely, talking about Mr. Murdaugh. This is just before he testified. Look at his actions. Look at his movements. Did you ever hear her say that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you ever have any conversations with the bailiff, Mr. Bill?
Yes, sir.
Did he ever discuss with you the clerk's contact with jurors?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you ever hear her say that the defense is going to try to confuse the jurors? Did you ever hear her say that?
No, sir. I don't think so.
Okay. Now, let me deal with one last area. Let me see if I can simplify this. There was a setup in the courtroom. Pardon me, I've got a little frog in my throat.
Frog.
And I'm fine, thank you.
I think I'll share my bottle over here if he wants part of it.
Once a clerk, always a clerk. So
Oh.
and I was there, you were there, this judge was not there. And prosecution tables over here, defense tables over here, judges up here. And then there's a rail behind which the clerk was. And because of all the massive electronic equipment we have there with big screens, there was an area over on my right facing the judge. And then I think you were located in that area right between the judge and that area. Is that correct?
Talking about in the well area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yes, sir. For the
Now,
most part, now sometimes I was out there with the screen
right,
in the gallery.
right. But there was a screen on which you could see not only what the gallery back there could see, but the images that only the jury was supposed to see that were under seal. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, there's a woman named Rhonda, the writer, correct?
Rich.
Rich. And tell me who she is.
At the time, we did not know who she was. The first time they were there, we didn't know. Then she came into Miss Becky's office the night before, and she asked if she could have another seat in the courtroom for the next day. And Miss Becky said yes. And she says, and what's your name again? And the only reason why I remember Rhonda, because of course my name being Rhonda. And the next day, Miss Rich was sitting, I don't know how to tell you, but she was sitting. Do you know where Doug was sitting?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I know, Judge, you don't know where Doug was sitting, but anyhow.
But Doug was the audiovisual guy, and he had access to the unscreened, the unsealed images, correct?
Yes, sir.
And she was sitting right next to him, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In that little part. And
So she could see the body cam, she could see the unredacted corpse pictures, the autopsy pictures, all the photos that the judge had sealed, correct?
well, no, the only thing she could see was what was being put up at the time.
Right. But
Okay.
as they were put up, she could see them.
Right. But they tried their best to seal it where you couldn't, but you could still see it there. I didn't see any of the
Right.
photos, okay?
But she could see them.
Right. And Doug was really having a problem with that. And I can also tell you that our court reporters didn't know who she was either. Okay.
And she turns out to be a writer, correct?
Yes, sir. After I found out. Yes, sir.
And her name is Rhonda Rich.
Correct.
She was given access to areas that only court personnel should have had access to.
Right. But then we broke, and then she moved her in the well with me. She was about on my left, and either Elizabeth or Mike was on my right. And I noticed she was taking notes. And I asked her what was she doing, taking notes. She says, I'm a Sunday school teacher. Well, I immediately covered up everything I had.
Sunday school teachers?
So,
You don't trust Sunday school teachers?
let me just, there's too many preachers in my family on both sides. Okay.
So, you determined she was not a Sunday school teacher, and later learned that she was a writer writing about the Murdaugh case, correct?
Now, I don't know if she's ever a Sunday school teacher or not. I don't even know where she goes to church or anything, so I can't tell you that answer. But I did find out that she was a writer because shortly after she was put there, and evidently after I covered everything up, shortly after that, Judge Newman asked for a recess so we could find where people were going to be working. And that's when she put Miss Rich out in the gallery in control of that screen.
And she ended up writing the foreword to Becky's book. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Becky gave her access to area only court personnel should have had. Is that correct?
That is true. But now I'll be honest with you, sir. There's been a couple times when we had other people that were sitting on that side. We weren't planning on seeing sealed documents that day,
Right.
but there were some other people that sat there, but nobody that actually sat in the well that wasn't court people.
Thank you for indulging.
Mr. Waters, on cross-examination. Oh, okay.
Rhonda,
Judge, do you
credible.
have an extra bottle of water up there by any chance you're willing to share? Oh, Miss Elizabeth's got one. Thank you.
it's one credible gal up there, ladies and gentlemen. She is credible. Becky is the
How
senior
you doing
business.
today?
I'm good, sir. Please call me Rhonda.
I always called you Miss Rhonda. I've known you for a long time as well. In fact,
Yes, sir.
I tried one of those murder cases in front of you years ago.
Yes, sir.
Wanted to ask a couple things. I won't be that long. And one of the things that you said earlier is you said when you initially were talking to Miss Hill, she said something like, we ought to write a book or something.
That is correct.
Okay. And so did y'all have any further discussion about you writing the book, participating with the book?
Oh,
or anything
no,
like
sir.
that?
I'm crazy enough not to write one.
Okay. During the course of after the trial, she did send you like chapters and things like that. to
We
take a look
did,
at.
I did get to see a couple of drafts of the manual.
Okay, so she does send you those to take a look at and review and that sort of thing. Is that
Correct.
Okay. All right. And you were asked and again, Your Honor, just to be clear, I've made some objections.
Not like any objections by cross-examination, they're all preserved.
Thank you.
May proceed.
Thank you. You mentioned, some statements that you attributed to Ms. Hill, during the course of conversations, during the course of the trial. Is that correct? Just things like watching closely, watches mannerisms, and things like that. And where were those conversations? Were those conversations taking place back in the clerk's offices with clerk staff and people like that?
Yes, sir, in the clerk's office. It might have been downstairs in the bathroom.
Okay.
Some of us had privilege to go to.
All right. So you and Miss Becky and other court staff maybe just discussing the case and that sort of thing. Is that
That is
correct?
correct.
And people were expressing their opinions about what was going on and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
Now, when we were having those discussions, there weren't more than one or two, maybe three people there.
Okay. But just a few people there just talking back behind the scenes. That's what I'm
Correct.
saying.
Yes, sir.
It was behind the scenes, and it's not uncommon for, clerk staff behind the scenes, not to the parties, not to the litigants, not to the jurors, but among themselves back in, in the hallways back there to talk about the day's activities and things like that. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's a big difference between the natural conversations that people that work together, court staff and the like, have with each other and actually having those conversations in front of the jurors, right? There's a big difference between those two, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it's not uncommon for you. You're a clerk of court. You got people that work for you. Y'all are going to have private conversations about what's going on that are not to be shared, particularly with jurors, but with the public as well. Is that fair?
That
to
is
say?
true.
Okay. All right. And so there were conversations like that going on that you were privy to and part of. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. And you mentioned a little bit about, well, let me ask you this. So there are all these conversations going on, and that's natural. That happens, private conversations with court staff behind closed doors, but you never once saw or observed or had anyone tell you that any of those conversations were being shared by Miss Becky with any juror. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right. And if that had happened, if you had observed anything untoward or improper going on at this particular trial, you would have immediately gone to Judge Newman as part of your obligation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you never did that because you never observed anything like that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Now, you were asked a little bit about Rhonda Rich, who was a member of the media, and how she was placed kind of back where the defense IT guy was. Is that
No.
correct?
I didn't say she was part of the media, sir.
Okay. Well, she was a writer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And then you said that eventually, though, Judge Newman stepped in, and then she was moved out into the gallery in charge of the screen out there.
Right, but I don't know. I thought Miss Becky moved. I'm not saying Judge Newman did.
Okay. All right. And over there in that area of the, if we look in the courtroom, there was sort of the grand jury box over here, and that was where court TV was and media was stationed and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And inevitably, there were media members that could view some of the images that were being shown. They were just not able to report those just because of the nature of where the courtroom was. Is that accurate?
Well, I was told they couldn't see it, so I don't know what they actually saw because I didn't discuss it with the media.
All right. You never had a conversation with court TV or anything like that?
Other than the fact, be careful what they put on my front page of the New York Times on me.
All right. All right. And you're not aware of any image or confidential information or sealed image or anything like that was ever made privy to Miss Rich that was put in any sort of publication or anything like that. Is that correct?
Not I'm aware of, sir.
Okay. Because if you had found out about that too, you would have immediately gone and reported that to Judge Newman because you would have said, that's improper. That I need to go report to
That is
the judge, correct?
Correct.
And you never once saw anything during the entire course of this trial that caused you to say, you know what, I got to go talk to Judge Newman. Something ain't right about this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you would have done that without a doubt if you had seen that, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, in looking at, back at this trial, you mentioned that there was a few days at the beginning of trial that you weren't there because you had your own court to take care of back in Barnwell County.
Correct.
All right. And then pretty much after that, I guess you were pretty much present the majority of the remainder of the time. Is that fair to say?
I had one for medical procedure done. I missed 2 days, but basically other than that, I was there every day.
And there was a period of time, though, during the middle of the trial where Miss Becky had a medical issue and had to be absent from the courtroom for about a week or something like that.
That is correct.
Okay, and during that period of time, you were present and functioning as the lead clerk of court during that period of time.
That is correct.
All right, so the reality is that you were present for probably as much, if not more than anyone in the clerk's function during the course of this trial. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and again, just to reiterate, there was not one time that you observed or came in possession of any information that you were like, I got to go talk to Judge Newman about this.
No, sir.
Court's in order.
Yeah, see, here's the problem is that how did the jurors, like the jurors that made these affidavits, how did they know exactly the same things that she just testified that Becky Hill and her were talking about, those exact statements? Watch Murdaugh's movements on the stand, all those different things that are in those affidavits. How did they know that if she didn't repeat it to the jurors?
Half the question.
Where it falls apart.
Mr. Waters indicated to you that you were not aware of whether or not, and you agreed that you never witnessed her talking to a juror about the evidence. Is that correct? We
That is
agree on that.
correct.
Do you know, but she did admit to you that she had been with the juror alone in a car for some period of time when you confronted her with that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And did she indicate to you what she talked to that juror about while they're alone in the car?
No, sir. She told me, the only thing she told me was that she did not discuss the case, that she had Mr. Bill, the bailiff, with her, and he could tell her that. Tell her.
And when she said she didn't discuss the case,
I'd rather.
did you bring that up or did she bring that up?
She brought that up.
You didn't say shouldn't be with him because it's frowned upon?
I did tell her that I would caution her on doing that because the perception of dealing with the jurors one-on-one is not tolerated.
Is not tolerated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McElveen. You may be excused.
Phew. Wow.
All right, Mr. Harpootlian, call your next witness.
Your Honor, we would call juror 741.
Damaging. Damaging.
Well,
All right,
that's
y'all,
right, she's
5
gone.
more minutes.
That's all right.
I'm sad that I have to jet. I want to watch this
I got you.
with y'all.
Your Honor, while she's coming, my understanding is limited to 4 questions.
Yes, sir.
4
I have a
questions.
copy, and I have given the court reporter a copy of this affidavit with the name obscured and the number, I think, as well. So, but the affidavit that supports this testimony that you're about to offer is Court's Exhibit 5.
Background about her getting picked for the jury and how long she was on the jury and
That's fine.
excuse. I only intend on asking these 4 questions.
All right.
Unless Mr. Waters asks.
Sure. I mean, they'll have cross-examination.
He would definitely open the door.
All right.
He's limited to the 4 questions initially. Is that?
Yeah.
No, he's just telling me
Can't do
that's
it,
what he
Shan.
intends to do.
I'm streaming with Law & Crime. I
Sometimes
gotta
you
use
can
the
hold
computer.
lawyers to that, and sometimes you can't, Mr. Mellon.
I wish.
Only after those 4 questions.
That's fine. Yeah.
I'd let the guy, I'd let the Nook host it, but
Yeah.
he's really pouty because I haven't taken him for a walk today. I don't know. After I read the entire 22 pages plus the 5 for the motion this morning, I really didn't have a throat left. But you all should go and watch, by the way, on the Delphi thing. And subscribe, like, please, here. If you're at Jay's and you're not here, I'm not sure what you're doing.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you, Deputy.
4 questions. We should be able to squeeze this in.
Your Honor, I assume the same rule apply to her that apply to the other jurors in terms of her image appearing?
That's correct. There'll be no photograph made of this particular witness who was an alternate juror in the matter. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to refer to you as Juror 741. It's what we got to do here, so we don't use your name, so people don't know who you are. Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
And you and I have met before.
Correct.
I came
Two
here home
questions.
one Sunday afternoon. I believe you're cooking Sunday dinner, and we talked. Is that correct?
3
Correct.
questions.
And then you were interviewed by SLED.
Correct.
Sit
and you
down.
gave them a recorded statement. And then this morning you came here and you gave me an affidavit that you signed, and you're here with your lawyer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, just for purposes of the record, you were a juror. You were selected to be a juror on the State versus Alec Murdaugh
No.
murder charge, correct?
Correct.
And you sat in the courtroom for 6 weeks and listened to all the testimony.
Correct.
And you were the alternate.
Correct.
And so when the jury went out to deliberate, you were excused. Is that correct? Now, I'm going to go through a series of questions based on your affidavit, okay,
Okay.
that you signed this morning, which was based on our initial interview with you and your interview with SLED. This is basically the same thing you told SLED. Is that correct?
Correct.
In your affidavit, you say before the defense put up their case,
Overruled. Go ahead.
Thank you. In your affidavit, you said before the defense put up their case, Ms. Hill told the jurors, quote, the defense is about to do their side. They're going to say things that will try to confuse you. Don't let them confuse you or convince you or throw you off, unquote. Is this true? Did Ms. Hill
Accurate.
say
That's
that?
exactly what she told us.
I'm sorry?
That's exactly what she told us.
Okay. The next thing you say is Ms. Hill made the above statement warning the defense would try to confuse us in the presence of all the jurors as we assembled in the same jury room. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, y'all were initially in two
We were
jury.
in two separate rooms, and when she came in, we all went in one room.
Okay. Paragraph number 5, Ms. Hill said, if you get emotional, we want to see your face
Becky,
because that's what they want to see. What
She
does that
said,
mean?
she said, don't get nervous. Be afraid to show your emotions because that's what they want to see.
Who wants to see?
I don't know who she was speaking of. I'm assuming the court.
Okay. And then number 6, Ms. Hill also informed us Alec Murdaugh was going to testify, but I don't recall exactly what she said. All the jurors were assembled in one room when she made that comment.
Exactly.
She told you that Alec Murdaugh was going to testify.
Exactly.
Did you know before that he was going to testify?
I think we knew that he was going to come up. I think he was supposed to do it the day before, but he didn't. And I knew he was going to be the last person that afternoon.
Okay. During the visit to Moselle, juror number 826 and I walked to the scene together. Then juror 826 began walking with the clerk of court, Becky Hill. I could tell they were talking. I could not hear what was said between them. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is what you put in this affidavit truthful?
Yes, sir.
And this is what you told us back in
I don't remember that
August,
months
I
ago.
believe. I think I interrupted you cooking Sunday dinner.
Right.
All right, thank you. Please answer any questions defense may have for you.
Mr. Waters. All right, Mr. Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Please, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms.
Good
741.
afternoon.
It's nice to see you again.
Yeah.
I think it's the first time you talked to Mr. Harpootlian or Mr. Griffin or any other attorney.
I can't tell you exactly. It's been months. It's probably been September, August. It's been months.
Okay. And were they the first attorney to talk to you, or was there somebody else that talked to you prior to them? Any other attorney?
No, I think he was the first person I talked to.
You sure?
I think it was so many people trying to call me, and I was trying not to be involved, so I can't
I can't quite remember,
And
but he was the first person I'd seen.
first person in person.
Yes,
Okay. So when he came to your house,
yes,
Mr. Harpootlian came to your house.
yes.
And at that point, was Miss Holly with him? Holly, you mind raising your hand? You see Miss Holly?
Yes,
And was anybody else with him?
yes. He was
Mr. Griffin? Thank
Mr.
you.
Griffin.
Thank you. And you gave them a statement then, right?
Right.
And did they record you? I mean, were they audio or video record you? Did they say we'd like to record this?
No,
They didn't.
but neither did the people that came out. They didn't. I didn't know I was being recorded by them neither.
I'm not trying to.
Oh, okay.
But is there an audio recording of your conversation with them that you know of?
No,
Did they say?
not that I know of. No.
So you don't remember saying?
We're required to tell her if recording her under rules. We did record it.
He's on cross-examination.
Thank you. And at that point, and that was again, do you remember, you said you think, was that around the end of August, 1st of September when they first came and talked to you? Roughly.
Roughly. I don't want to.
And you told them basically everything that you've told us now, right?
Yes,
Exact same thing.
exact same thing that I told them.
Nothing less, nothing more.
Yes.
So Mr. Harpootlian, just, and you didn't sign an affidavit back in September or when you talked to him the first time?
No,
And why not?
because he was just coming out to talk to me. He just was asking questions. It wasn't nothing officially. He had, so
When you say nothing officially, I don't know what you mean.
he was just coming out to ask, he was just asking questions about what went on during the trial. It wasn't,
But did they ask you to sign an affidavit that day?
no,
Okay. Did they ask you to sign an affidavit anytime, right?
no,
No, they never asked you to sign an affidavit until this week?
no. I was supposed to meet with them a couple of occasions, but I was having my own personal issues and I couldn't come.
But I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
So you told them at this first meeting, back at the end of August, 1st of September, that y'all going to hear some things that will throw you off. Don't let it distract you or mislead you. Is that what you said?
That's what, I didn't say that. That's what the clerk of court said.
Yeah, I'm saying that's what
Oh,
you
yeah.
said to them. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Okay, and where did that take place?
She would always stand like on the outside of the jury room, like in between, like on the outside. She would never really come inside the jury room.
So there were two rooms, right?
Yeah,
Okay, one room and then the other room separated, right?
right.
And you couldn't hear people talk in the other room, could you?
No, that's why when she came, everybody came in one room.
Okay, so this comment you said she made, did she bring everybody out in the hallway?
Some people was in the hall. That's why I said she was standing right at the head of the door.
Standing at the head of the door.
Right.
Was Mr. Bill there? Your bailiff?
Yeah, he would be standing in the hallway.
He's all out there, right?
Right.
And then she said in front of everybody, the defense is about to do their side. They're going to say things that will confuse you. Don't let them confuse you or convince you or throw you off. She said that to everybody.
She said that to everybody.
So everybody could have heard.
Everybody could hear it.
And you said you were all in the same jury room.
Yeah, we would all be in the same. When she came, she was standing in front of the door with the jury room that I was in, and everybody would come over. They would let us know before she came. They'll let us know like after lunch she gonna come talk to y'all, and we all would gather together.
So would you go from two rooms into one room?
Some would be standing out. She would stand in front of the door. Some would be standing around her outside the door, and some would be in the room. But it was clear enough for us to hear and see her.
And I'm just, Mr. Harpootlian led you, and Ms. Hill made the above statement warning that the defense would try to confuse us in the presence of all of the jurors as we have assembled in the same jury room.
We was all in the same jury room. She would be on outside the door, and we would be in the room, and someone would be standing beside her. We was always all together when she came.
Oof.
And do you think that was unusual?
No, because I guess she didn't want to walk back and forth to room.
No, fact of what she said. Do you think that was unusual?
Yeah, I did.
And if you get emotional and see his face, they want people to see your face?
because, you know, some of the jurors was getting emotional, and I guess she noticed it, so she commented on it.
All right, y'all, I'm so sorry. I hate to cut this off. I got to get on. I got 4 minutes to get on. We're at, let's see, we are, just so y'all know, I'm streaming it on Law and Crime. You'll be able, if you have the app, you can go and you can watch the whole thing without commercials and just stream right to it. So I love y'all so much. All you bows out there, make sure you're subscribing to our station, our channel as well. We're fam. We're the Just Facties. So all you facties out there, love y'all for coming. And make sure you check out the video from this morning and went through everything going on in the crazy ass Delphi case. It's long, but it's worth it. And I try to give a little explanation as to what we were reading there. So you guys are the best. I love you. Thank you for hanging out. Sorry for the hiccups, but if you know me, I don't know shit about tech. Love y'all. Because without you, I'd just be an old man talking about new cases. Talk to you next time.